It's late at night. You're in the kitchen, grabbing a glass of water before bed. The house is quiet, the kind of quiet where every sound feels louder than it should. Then, bam! Something slams into the ceiling light above you and drops halfway to the floor before catching itself in midair. You freeze. 6 ridiculously long legs dangling underneath it, a body that looks far too big to belong to any mosquito you've ever seen, and a flight pattern that suggests it has absolutely no idea what it's doing, zigzagging, dipping, banking hard into the fridge like it's had way too much coffee. Most people don't stop to think. They grab whatever's closest, a rolled-up newspaper, a shoe, a can of spray, and declare war. Completely understandable, but put it down for a second. Because the giant, ceiling-smacking creature you're about to execute is one of the most harmless insects you'll ever meet. It doesn't want your blood, it doesn't want to bite you, and in a lot of cases, it can't even eat. That sounds made up. It isn't. The thing you just watched crash into your fridge is called a crane fly, though most people just know it as the giant mosquito or the mosquito hawk, which is almost funny because nearly everything people believe about it is wrong. So, let's start with the reason your brain panicked in the first place: the size. A crane fly can look 10 times bigger than a normal mosquito, with legs that seem to go on forever. Bouncing around your kitchen at midnight, it doesn't look like an insect anymore. It looks like a glitch in reality. And then it starts flying, which somehow makes things worse. A real mosquito moves with quiet, terrifying precision, trying not to be noticed. A crane fly flies like it just woke up from anesthesia, hitting walls, hitting lamps, hitting curtains, and eventually hitting you right in the face. Your brain doesn't stop to investigate, it just says, nope. And honestly, that's a fair reaction. From a distance, this looks exactly like the kind of insect evolution would design right before introducing a new disease. But here's the part nobody tells you. Get close enough, and the entire horror story falls apart. There's no needle, no blood-sucking tube, no vampire equipment of any kind. In fact, many adult crane flies barely have working mouthparts at all, which sounds impossible until you understand what their adult life is actually for. Millions of years ago, crane flies made a brutal evolutionary trade. Somewhere along the way, biting stopped being the mission. By the time many species reach adulthood, their mouthparts are reduced, their digestion simplified, and almost every ounce of energy they have left gets redirected towards one single goal: finding a mate before time runs out. That giant shape bouncing off your ceiling isn't a predator. It's closer to a flying countdown clock, running on whatever fuel it stored up as a larva, and that fuel is almost gone. Most adults survive only a few days, some barely make it a week. Every hour matters, every missed opportunity matters, which is exactly why it flies like it's falling apart. It is racing against the clock, chasing light, chasing scent, chasing one last shot at completing the only mission it has left. So, next time you're sprinting across the kitchen with a rolled-up newspaper, you're not fighting a monster. You're chasing an exhausted little creature, trying to fall in love before it dies, which is somehow both ridiculous and a little bit tragic. Now here's where the next myth shows up, and this one gets repeated by people who genuinely think they're protecting the crane fly. Don't kill it, they say. It eats mosquitoes. Nature solving nature. A backyard mosquito hunter working the night shift for free. Unfortunately, that's not true either. The nickname mosquito hawk has been around for generations, and somewhere along the way, people assumed there was an actual hawk hiding in there, something hunting mosquitoes on your behalf. There isn't.
Remember those broken down mouth parts? An insect that can barely eat isn't out chasing prey through the air. Adult crane flies don't hunt mosquitoes. They don't bite humans. They're some of the most defenseless insects you'll ever come across, which is exactly why birds snatch them mid-flight, spiders catch them in webs, and house cats treat them like an easy toy instead of a threat. So, if the adult stage is this short, this clumsy, and mostly just spent getting eaten, why does this insect even exist? This is where the story actually gets interesting, because the version you've been panicking about was never the important one. The real work happens months earlier, underground, where nobody's watching. Long before it ever grows wings, a cranefly spends most of its life as a larva buried in damp soil, leaf litter, and the edges of streams and wetlands. Not glamorous, but genuinely essential. Down there, it feeds on decaying leaves and dead plant matter, and while it eats, it's doing two things your yard actually depends on. First, it speeds up decomposition, breaking down dead material faster so nutrients return to the soil where plants can use them. Second, as it tunnels through the ground, it carves tiny channels that let air and water sink deeper into the earth. So long before it becomes the confused little creature bouncing off your ceiling, it spent months quietly working as an underground recycler and soil engineer, and the healthy grass around your house may owe more to it than you'd ever guess. So, what do you actually do when one ends up in your house? Light. Simple. Help it back outside. No execution required. Craneflies are pulled towards light almost automatically, so switch off the lights indoors, crack a window, and leave a light on outside. 9 times out of 10, it'll find its own way out. Or if you want it gone faster, the classic cup and paper trick works in under 30 seconds. No chemicals, no drama. Save the aggressive stuff for the insects that are actually worth worrying about. But here's one last thing worth knowing, because it might be more useful than anything in this video. If you keep seeing craneflies around your house, that's not random, it's a clue. Their larvae need moisture, and a lot of it. Wet soil, damp leaf piles, clogged gutters, poor drainage. The cranefly was never the problem. But those same soggy conditions happen to be exactly what mosquitoes need to breed. So, in a strange way, this harmless, mouthless, terrible flyer is accidentally warning you about the insect you actually should be worrying about. So, the next time something smacks into your ceiling light at midnight, don't see a giant mosquito. See an exhausted little creature running out of time, doing its clumsy best to complete one final mission before its few days are up. A mouthless romantic, a terrible pilot, one of the most unfairly judged insects in your entire backyard. If this changed the way you'll look at the next one that crashes into your kitchen, hit subscribe now, because nature is full of things that look terrifying right up until you learn what they're actually doing. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.